In the dying light of an ancient world, the hunters followed the blood trail through the forest of stone. The beast they chased, a massive, tusked boar, had vanished as if swallowed by the earth itself. But its heavy, cloven footprints led them to a gaping maw in the landscape, a hole in the earth as wide as a river mouth, and from its depths, a slow, rhythmic breath emanated. They believed it to be a simple cave, a lair for their quarry. They were wrong. It was something else entirely, something far older and more sinister than they could ever imagine. The air that pulsed from inside was unnervingly warm, wet, and carried the cloying stench of rot and decay. As they drew closer, their torches flickered violently, the flames seeming to recoil as if they were afraid of the encroaching darkness. Despite the palpable sense of dread that hung in the air, their pride in the promise of a great kill drove them forward. 5 shadows, stark against the encroaching dark, stepped over the threshold and into the unknown, the familiar echo of their cautious steps. The scrape of leather on stone vanished entirely after the 3rd breath, absorbed by the oppressive silence. Inside, the walls pulsed with a faint, almost imperceptible light, like tis-soft vascular glow within the throat of some colossal, living creature. Glistening drips of black water fell from the cavern's ceiling, but when they struck the ground, they didn't splash. They hissed like potent acid, leaving small, smoking pits in the rock. There was no echo. There was no sound. There was only the soft, pervasive rhythm that seemed to come from everywhere at once. Thump-like, a monstrous heartbeat buried deep beneath the stone. The first of their party to be taken was the youngest, a boy on his first true hunt, eager and reckless. He rounded a sharp corner, his torchlight momentarily silhouetted against the passage ahead, and then he was simply gone. There was no cry, no sound of a struggle, nothing to mark his passing but the sudden void where he had stood. When the others cautiously followed, their hearts pounding in their chests, they found his torch. It was still burning brightly, stuck perfectly upright in the soft, fleshy ground, not dropped, but placed as if something had set it there deliberately. Watching them from the impenetrable shadows, a cold fear, ancient and primal, gripped them. The eldest hunter whispered the old word, the one their ancestors used for the malevolent spirit of the pit. But this time, the pit, it whispered back. A deep, slow, guttural moan rolled through the cave, a sound that did not travel through the air but seemed to vibrate through their very bones, resonating from the living flesh of the walls around them. The ground rippled beneath their feet like disturbed water. The very walls seemed to constrict, the faint light within them brightening and dimming with a terrifying cadence. In a surge of desperate defiance, one of the hunters thrust his flint-tipped spear deep into the cavern wall. The rock did not shatter, it bled. A thick, black ichor oozed from the wound, and the air immediately turned sickeningly sweet, like the smell of overripe rotting fruit. In the frantic, dancing torchlight, they finally saw the truth of their prison. A massive rib cage, each bone as black as polished obsidian and the size of a fallen tree, was grown seamlessly into the stone, forming the very architecture of the passage. This wasn't a cave. It was the mouth, the gullet of something colossal, something buried for eons, and something that was still horrifyingly alive. Panic shattered their discipline. They ran. They fled back the way they came, but the path seemed to twist and contort behind them, the passage closing like a throat that was swallowing them whole. One by one, their torches were extinguished, snuffed out by an unseen force or a sudden, wet gust of air. Plunged into absolute, suffocating darkness, they could hear something breathing beside them, a slow, wet, impossibly close respiration. They could feel the warmth of its foul exhale on the napes of their necks. A presence so near it was more felt than heard. And then, with a lurch that stole the air from their lungs, the ground simply disappeared from beneath them. The last surviving hunter awoke with a jolt of agonizing pain. He was lying in a shallow pool of thick, red mud that clung to him like a shroud. His leg was broken, the bone jutting out at an unnatural angle. As his vision cleared, he looked around in dazed horror. The walls were no longer rock, but a grotesque tapestry of living bone and taut muscle, glistening with a network of luminous, pulsating veins that cast an eerie, biological glow throughout the vast chamber. At the very center of this horrifying cathedral of flesh stood the carcass of the tusked boar they had been hunting. But it was hollowed out, its insides meticulously eaten clean, as if by a surgeon, and from within its cavernous chest cavity, something small and unnervingly pale moved. At first, he thought it was a human child, lost and trapped like him. But when it turned its face toward him, he saw it had no eyes, only smooth, blank skin where they should have been. It smiled. It smiled, and its mouth was filled with teeth not meant for any man, sharp and needle-like, arranged in rows that spoke of insatiable hunger. The hunter's mind broke. A scream, raw and filled with primal terror, tore from his throat. The cave itself seemed to answer, amplifying his cry into a deafening, earth-shattering roar that resonated through the very foundations of the world. The sound rose in a terrifying crescendo until the stone above cracked and the few torches left burning outside the entrance flickered and died. When the rest of his tribe, guided by worry, finally returned weeks later, they found the mouth of the cave completely sealed. It was as if the earth had healed its own wound, growing over the opening overnight, leaving no trace of the chasm that had been there before. There were no discarded weapons or bones. There was only a faint, rhythmic sound that one could feel more than hear if they pressed an ear to the ground, like the slow, steady breathing of something sleeping just beneath the surface. The elders, in their wisdom, said the earth had simply eaten them, a sacrifice to the old gods of the land. But a darker legend was born that day. Others whispered that the hunters were not gone. They were still down there, walking forever in the dark, tasked with the eternal duty of keeping the fire alive inside the belly of the world. Savage dawn, prehistoric horror, the cave that devoured hunters. Fear has a home, and it remembers who entered.